what is graph machine learning? Can you talk about it in the context of deep learning and neural networks? Please also share what is graph machine learning used for and what are its practical implications.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something which is very exciting for me, and at AstraZeneca, this is something which I have been spending a lot of time on. So yeah, I'm very happy to talk more about it. So so in essence, graph machine learning is building models which are able to learn the representations of graphical data. So if you think about the different data modalities and the models which do exist currently. So you have, for example, imaging models or text models or audio models. The data modality for those, for imaging models, is some sort of image going in. For text models is some sort of passage or string of text going in, and for audio is some sort of spectral information going in. So graph machine learning presents us essentially a set of techniques and tools which allow us to process graphical data. So data which has different actors or different entities which have some sort of relationship between them. So this can be, for example, a chemical structure of a compound, or a social network, or a hierarchical organization chart, for example. And the idea is to build models which are able to learn the representation of these structures and then use them to perform several downstream tasks. So for example, if you are able to learn the representation of a graph, then we can use these techniques to predict new links in that kind of graph. And for example, in drug discovery, these new links could be new targets or new diseases for existing drugs, and so on. We can also extend this approach to classification, so classifying different labels for different entities in that graph. So you can imagine, for example, in a biological knowledge graph, you have several molecules. You want to sort of classify what sort of attributes a new molecule would have, given your knowledge of other molecules that you have seen before. And furthermore, recently, these approaches are also used in recommendation tasks. Right. So for things such as recommending movies, where these approaches are very robust and very capable of modeling the complex relationships between different entities in a graph to then perform new recommendations. Okay. And in the context of deep learning, this is essentially results in a graph neural network where we have several frameworks, one of which is a message passing framework where through different iterations of training a neural network, you're able to aggregate the information by looking at the states of different entities in the graph. So the model is able to learn to represent entities by sharing the knowledge from different entities across different iterations. And that's essentially what GraphML is and how it manifests in itself in deep machine learning.
Can you also mention what are its practical implications? Like you mentioned recommending in movies, but what else in terms of healthcare?
Sure. So in healthcare, it has very significant uses in the drug discovery scenario, right. Because you have several kind of data sets which are inherently graphs. So for example, as I said, compounds, their chemical structures can be represented as graphs. And also there's data sets which essentially represent the way biological entities relate to each other using knowledge graphs. So for example, the way in which compounds affect different gene targets, or the way in which different pathways are related to different genes, or the anatomy are all knowledge graphs. And we are able to train models on these knowledge graphs, for example, to then predict, for example, the drug repurposing problem, where, given you already have a drug, what are the novel diseases it could be applied to? So these sort of use cases are inherently graph-based, and by using the graph neural networks and similar deep learning techniques, we're able to really harness the complex relationships, which is not really possible using the traditional tools tools that are deep learning tools that are available to us.